Hello, let's get to the 25 to 21st greatest TV shows of this century. Now, this century has been so good for TV. In my opinion, if I made a list of the best TV shows of all time, it wouldn't change that much from these 25 series that you're about to see. So, the 25th best TV show of this century, and I cheated a little bit because I did a tie, which is the only tie on this list, so I guess technically 26, but 25 best is, which sounds better, is Arrested Development and 30 Rock. Now, these are two series that when they're on, everybody loved them, but Arrested Development got canceled after 3 seasons, then brought back on Netflix. I don't think the Netflix seasons are as good as the Fox ones. I think those are where you need to start, and maybe, I don't know, you could end it at a certain point and probably not lose that much. But I really wrestled with it because I'm like, well, even though the final seasons were weak, it's still such a great show. And honestly, it kind of really shaped comedy for television in this century. The quick jokes, the gags, the recurring themes. Community certainly owes a lot to this show. There's been a ton of influence that it had on all these TV shows. And so I really think that probably shaped American comedy on television, quality comedy, a lot of short-lived shows or shows that never got the attention they deserved for most of this century. And there's great performances, a lot of characters, a lot of things that have become famous since the show was on TV. I don't know why people didn't watch it when it was on, but 10 years later, everybody's like, oh, this show's so great. Yeah, okay, whatever. Then 30 Rock did get critical acclaim and at least some ratings to stay on NBC all those years, racked up a ton of Emmys, won just all kind of Emmys. And I think its acclaim has suffered a little bit since it went off the air. People don't talk about it as much, certainly not as fondly as they do Parks and Rec and some other shows around that same time period that they didn't get as much attention in the beginning, but now have more. But 30 Rock, it would be a shame not to include it, honestly, because even though not every episode is great, there's so many jokes, wall-to-wall jokes, great characters, memorable setups. And so even though these are shows that their appeal has declined in recent years, I still think that they're excellent shows that people should check out. The 24th place is 24. A little gimmicky, I know, a little gimmicky. But I really wrestled with whether to include this or not. But ultimately, even though the reboot sucked and the final season with 12 episodes wasn't very good, this is still a show that gave me a ton of enjoyment when it was on. I know people like to make fun of it now and they've done all kind of parodies or whatever, and that's fine. But I think that you forget how riveting it was to see a series in real time and an action series where you never knew what was going to happen. The first few seasons especially, I think, were just, everybody was really talking about it. It was sort of the Game of Thrones of its day, and that people say, can you believe this person died or that this happened? And it's hard to remember that now, but it was a huge hit. And I think that because of all the great hours and the suspense and the drama and the unique format, I still think that it's definitely worth watching. Hopefully you don't know too much about what happens because there's a lot of shocking twists and turns for a broadcast network show to kill off this many characters and people and have this many unique twists and turns. It was doing something right. And this show's a lot better than Alias. Alias was another series I thought about, but the last 2 seasons sucked so bad. Really, Alias ends in season 3 for me personally. And so I do think 24 has a better legacy. It's a better overall experience. They have way more quality episodes. I'd say probably at least 100 really good episodes. Before it sort of had some decline or whatever. And even the final full season, the 8th season with a full 24 episodes, even that season's pretty good. Even it's just hard to do a show in its 8th season having that many more surprising moments, as we've seen with Game of Thrones and some others. Okay, pick 23 is Fringe. This was another series, like 24, on Fox. That started out as sort of a procedural, a little bit, people called it an X-Files ripoff, but in my opinion is better than the X-Files. And it gradually becomes more serialized. The final season is excellent. That's pretty much all one self-contained story about a dystopia they have to try to work backwards to prevent. I kind of wish every season had been like that, where there was one major plot. But even some of the procedural episodes are really strong and really good, featuring a lot of memorable villains and story arcs. Of course, you got Joshua Jackson, who I think a lot of people really love. That's an actor I think people wish was bigger than he was, and his chemistry with both Anna Torv as his eventual love interest and his father, John Noble, I think, is just really good. And it has this unique element where a lot of sci-fi series are either aliens or robots or something, but this is about multiple dimensions. And so you see some of these characters interacting with themselves in a different dimension, usually for the worse. Usually their characters are not necessarily better in the other dimensions, but it just depends on who we're talking about. So I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, you should definitely check that out. If you love sci-fi television, I think you really, especially might like Fringe. The 22nd show is Getting On, which is unique in that it's set entirely in a place where you probably don't want to spend a lot of time, which is a elder care unit in a hospital. But this is such a strong show. I mean, Niecy Nash is great. Laurie Metcalf is great. This is one of those shows that it really didn't get the attention it deserved when it was on. And I think you should try to check it out now. I'm talking about the American version. There was a British one, but I'm specifically meaning the American version. People probably wouldn't think to include this show in a lot of lists like this or rankings, but it really is that good, even though it was only on for 3 seasons. Definitely try to catch up with that one. 21 is Parks and Recreation. Now, Parks and Recreation is a show that I sort of have a complicated feelings towards because I love many episodes and I hate some episodes. Some characters are really great and some are annoying as hell. I'm talking Chris Pratt as Andy. I think we get it that he's stupid. I think they run some of the same plays over and over again, some of the same jokes. And so I do think it might have lasted a little too long. I think some of the jokes get a bit repetitive, but ultimately it has so much to say about politics and government and small town life and civic duty. And it's so relevant to what's happening right now. I couldn't not include it.